On today's podcast, we are joined by Elevated Josh. You all may know him from his previous podcast with Hero Paranormal, where he discusses basically finding all kinds of entrances into underground possible bases and facilities in Utah. He's out there in the field quite often, and today he was on site doing some work up in the mountains, I believe, elevated as usual, and out in the scenery that makes Utah so famous. Elevated Josh is going to touch base with us and go into the interesting claims that the government and military have continued to deny that they have evidence of any such program retrieving reverse-engineered craft and materials, technology for lack of a better word, and keeping it from the public. Recently, David Grush has become a whistleblower during an interview with journalist Ross Coulthart that aired on News Nation. And in that interview, he claimed that the United States retains multiple technology assets, craft, reverse-engineered materials, and that they come from non-human intelligence. This becomes very relevant when it comes to the case of a possible alien encounter in Las Vegas, which may have incorporated the use of such craft. And it gets even stranger when you realize there may be a psychological operation taking place, possibly with United States military contractors at the helm, those who in fact have the ability to utilize such technology to make a family believe that they saw an alien spacecraft and aliens in their backyard. I've been told that the ability to make these organic robotoids or robotic entities that appear to be much like what is described is feasible. And Elevated Josh is going to touch in, tell us what his opinion of this is, and what we should make of these extraordinary claims. If you have not become a patron to Hero Paranormal, I highly suggest going to HEROparanormal.com. And for the price of a cup of coffee a month, you get everything behind the paywall. That's a ton of content, the whole enchilada. You can also go to Patreon and search for Hero Paranormal and access it that way. Also, if you have not subscribed to Hero Paranormal on YouTube, please help me break through the algorithm of control. I will most likely never be monetized due to a variety of reasons on YouTube. However, if you like, subscribe, and share the podcast, at least people can hear it, and the shadow ban can somewhat be lifted. Let's get to it. Buckle up for a strange ride into the alleged private sector programs, contractors, and others who retrieve and exploit unidentified aerial phenomena, which, according to whistleblowers, is not of this world.
Come blast off in my time machine. Third eye feeling like an Evazine. Blast off, blast off, blast off, blast off. Come blast off in my time machine. Third eye feeling like an Evazine. Blast off, blast off, blast off, blast off.
Josh, welcome to the Hero Paranormal Podcast.
Hey Ryan, how's it going, man? It's good to talk to you again.
Going good. Weird times. We've got an alien encounter in Las Vegas going viral on social media for, a variety of reasons. We have aliens and UFOs being a very big topic in recent months. And there's the whole Chinese spy balloon fiasco. And of course, David Grush, former intelligence official, whistleblower, claiming the United States has been up to deceiving the public. With the trend so hot on people's minds, I know that you've done extensive research into this, and not only how the police interacted with the family who claimed to see this, but how the family's claims have changed over time. What are your thoughts overall of what's taking place, like with the UFO climate right now?
You know, it's an interesting situation. As we were talking about just a second ago, this one feels a little bit different. The timeline over the last it's been over a month and a half, about a month and a half now since this all started, has been definitely eye-catching. It's raised my curiosity to the point where there's so many pieces of evidence in this story that are so scattered about and also numerous that it's hard to just look at this as a hoax or something, that the average person would look at and dismiss as a crazy news story, because you have so many different pieces of evidence that corroborate the same story here. Mm-hmm. It seems like either this was actually what happened, something extraterrestrial, non-human landed in this family's backyard, or my personal other theory is that it happened, but 100% isn't what we're seeing it as, or isn't as it's been portrayed. It's really interesting. I don't know what to believe. I'm not trying to stick to one thing because the story is changing so much. I don't want to solidify my belief because you get thrown a curveball every day with this kind of stuff. And when it originally started, we had the kid come out, with the videos. So we had the first few videos that I could find online were the fence video with this creature standing behind the fence and the whole family armed, standing outside the fence, clearly terrified about what's going on the other side of their fence. You had, the Ring doorbell camera video, the police body cam video of this object landing, or seemingly cruising past the backyard. It's hard to tell by the angle, but all these videos and all this information you had come out at first, I didn't find out till a week after I started looking into it. Didn't happen, and it was in May. I thought it had happened, a week and a half, 2 weeks ago when it was first released, which was the first thing that threw me off. And I'm kind of jumping around here, but the News Nation is a really big point in this story. I know the Washington Post wanted to do a little bit more research before they actually went with this story. They wanted to do some more reporting and on the ground, investigating before they came out with it. I guess the New York Times decided to just pass it up, but the two journalists who are from the debrief that are involved in getting this story out, they've done great journalism in the past. And when they handed it off to News Nation, who essentially, I think for most people, broke the news. There was the debrief article, but I think your average person on the street or average, news feed scroller, most of them, the first time they saw it, was in these News Nation reports. And I haven't done a lot of investigating into them as a company personally, but I find it very strange that the debrief hands the story off to News Nation in some way or another. And News Nation posts it. One of my main concerns is I have seen videos and different things people are posting that I cannot find the sources for. They didn't come from Angel and his family themselves. It's not police footage. The video you sent me yesterday is interesting. That video didn't make sense compared to the other ones. And there's been a lot of things I've seen in the last few weeks that don't add up. The algorithms, when you search for a lot of these videos, are either misdirecting you or completely obscuring videos from your feed. So essentially, I've spoken about this topic as far as the misdirection in the algorithms goes with a few people I work with, other people that I talk to in the community. And I seem to be getting the same story from my own personal experience and others, that there seems to be quite a confusing misdirection campaign going here, but it's really ambiguous and it's really low-lying too. I've picked up some patterns in this misdirection, and other people have too, but it's hard to tell with the way the information is changing and with how very few real sources of info we have here, that it's hard to get a full picture of who or is exactly behind this misdirection tactics, because, I mean, if you pay attention to the subject, most of us know that there's different probably different factions that are fighting over this in the government. You might have people that want to expose the truth, and you got other people that want to use these technologies for nefarious things, to control and power schemes. And it's hard to tell at this point who's acting and when. There's a few people I trust in the field. You're one of them. I trust George Knapp for the most part. I definitely trust Doug Papa. There's a lot of other good people that have reposted videos and collected the information online. Chaos Moogle is one of them on YouTube. He's done a really good job of collecting all the information and putting it into a digestible format that people can watch. So if anyone out there wants to see a lot of this information in one spot, go to Chaos Moogle's YouTube. He's a good one from Angel, as well as surrounding neighborhood that are really weird. The camera is installed on the light pole behind the house is an interesting one. I find the change in Angel's behavior to be another interesting topic of conversation. There seem to be changes in the story from the family, like you said. And it's hard to nail down exactly, besides from what Doug said on YouTube and in his podcast, what exactly is going on. I've tried to reach out to the officers myself, haven't been able to get a hold of them. From what I've been told by people in the area, and from what Doug has said too, that apparently, the police aren't really making a lot of comment on this, as of, when they said a few days ago that their officers weren't the ones that showed up to the house the second time. So we also have that. We have this pair of ambiguous, no-name agents that have been creeping around. I don't know if they're still. You live in the area, Ryan. You might have a better idea of this. I don't know if you've gone out there, but I don't know if there's still government agents creeping around there. But there is enough of a response from authorities in this, and enough pieces of evidence to have me state and believe 100%. I feel like empirically at this point that it's something happened, obviously. But the question is not at this point if it's real or not, but what it was. And so I think once, hopefully more people can get a hold of this information, digest it a little bit, and realize that that's the question we need to be asking instead of getting stuck on the, is this real or is this a hoax, a joke kind of thing, because that's what a lot of people need to move past right now. And I'm hoping, getting out there, telling people about it, talking about it, gets more of us, in a state of mind that we're not so scared to start addressing these subjects, because it sounds absolutely insane, when you tell people, like, hey, Las Vegas, I guess last month, some 10-foot tall aliens landed in someone's backyard, and it seemingly is real. And most people, they laugh, or they make a quick joke about it when you say stuff, and I understand, I completely understand, like it's an anxiety-inducing topic when you really get down to it. And I'm just hoping that we can collectively relieve some of that anxiety in people, because these two situations, as far as David and Vegas go, I do believe they're intertwined. I don't believe it's just a coincidence where they happened within the same time period. So this is it feels different this time. It feels like there might be an avalanche starting as far as the truth embargo goes and disclosure goes. And I hate using those two terms, but, it's true. Like, there is a truth embargo. We need some disclosure. We need a way that the public can accept, that's safe for our society, that's not going to destabilize our culture, but also at the same time something that's going to benefit us and not be hidden for nefarious, weaponized purposes. So hopefully this is phase one of something that is going to change human history for eternity, and that's what I'm excited about, and that's what I want other people to hopefully get excited about. If this is true, which it is, I've seen it myself, a lot of other people have seen it themselves, and we know it's true. We're just waiting for the right pieces of evidence for everyone else to believe it's true, and I hope that happens soon, man, because I'm really, really excited about all this.
Yeah, there's a lot to this. And there's a lot to the players as well. A lot of people who have asked, who is Doug Papa, especially after the YC.news, thing that came out about him. We know that he is an ex-police officer, and there's a lot there that has to do with surveillance. I won't get into all of that credibility for sure. And but he is an interesting character, and I was
Knows the stuff.
I was blown away by the June 16th, 2023, which is today, the article that came out at YC News.
Yeah, what is with that date? It's such a mystery. So, essentially, what happened there? I haven't had too much of a chance to read about that.
Yeah,
saw a little bit about it.
So, basically, I don't like to talk badly about people, but it's an interesting. If you go to yc.news, there's a very interesting article, which is, I believe it's called "Who is Doug Papa?" off the top of my head. And it's interesting because it does play into all of this, that there's a lot of interesting coincidences, and there is, as you said, there seems to be something going on with the media. I agree 100% with that. And I've been told that News Nation is actually owned by the parent company that owns KLAS Channel 8 News, which is...
That's what I read.
Yeah. So that's the same news. That's the iNews, basically the same news network that George Knapp works for. And from what I understand, News Nation started out as a fledgling organization, did not have, was not in the same throes. It seems like everything is just CNN and Fox anymore. So it's kind of nice to get, a more independent news corporation, which will report on this stuff at all. And that brings the other point, which is, Forbes, The Guardian, New York Magazine, many Washington Post, like you said, many of these other organizations have attacked David Grush, the UFO whistleblower, basically calling him a liar. And what I like...
Oh, yeah, they've run him through. They've run him through the grinder in a lot of places. It's really disgusting, in my opinion.
Yeah, and what I like about News Nation is that they, with Ross, they were the ones that actually broke that amazing interview too. So there's kind of two counts here where News Nation has sort of broken UFO whistleblower in the case of David Grush. And now they've broken, kind of, like you said, other than the debrief, they've broken the Las Vegas alien encounter. And I've heard, actually from Greer, that this was mainly because many of the larger news corporations are still controlled by some way, shape, or form. Yeah. So it takes these smaller news organizations to actually have these things out. And it's kind of difficult to follow News Nation because, as you said, it's not like CNN, it's not Fox, it's not one of these bigger groups, and it's trying to stay with what's going on. But after looking at the whole situation and looking at the whole, you've done exhaustive research on this, and while the idea of aliens landing in Las Vegas is wild, Las Vegas has a pretty long history of this sort of thing. It may just take, it's just strange, it's been a hot topic. And what is your thoughts, which have emerged from the family that claimed to see these in their yard after a seemingly interesting object fell from the sky?
So it seems like at this point, obviously that it was real. I've watched 4 of the videos. We have the fence video. We have analysis that's been done on the fence video, image cropping, zoom, contrast, editing, things like that. You get some pretty good images from the fence video. Towards the bottom, you can see the fingers of one of these things, the outline of a head. You can see the outline of a blinking eye. You also see it seemingly stand up, which is interesting, behind the fence, which is really hard to see, but if you look at it well, you can see it. You can see the figure standing up behind the fence in that first video. The second video that is really important to me is, and still really confusing, is the tractor video that the family took. I believe it was taken by Angela's father, I believe. And it's the video of this shadowy being and its friend next to it, apparently trying to operate the tractor. And that's what it looked like to me. I saw the eyes blinking. I saw a shadow of something sitting in this thing. So to me, overall, it seems. I know Vegas has got a history with these things. You have a UFO there that was about a month or two ago now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I believe, and you covered that one. That was also interesting. I mean, it goes all the way back, man. You have Area 51, you have S4, Dreamland, Bob Lazar's story. As far as Bob Lazar goes, he's been dragged by a few people too. I know as far as his credentials go, a lot has been changed over his history, but I do believe him almost 100%. I believe that guy's telling the truth too. And there is definitely a congregation in the West here of a lot of this stuff going on. I mean, you have Dulce, you have Dugway, you have Vegas out there with Groom Lake. So I do believe it's all real, man. And the only thing I'm really worried about right now is discerning what information is going to be truthful and guiding me on the right path to finding this truth, and what is going to be manipulation, because it does seem like there is a pattern of manipulation here. If you look into ufology, it's been a thing in this community. It has its existence that, it started with Werner von Braun talking about, fake alien invasion, and that, the government has covered up and tried to manipulate these topics and obscure them from the public's eye, and as well as stigmatize them, over the last 5+ decades. So there's a strong evidence of manipulation in a lot of ways throughout the years. There's patterns of manipulation in these situations right now. And one of the things I hopefully other people are using their critical thinking skills here and looking at it and trying to analyze the situation from every perspective, because like you said about News Nation, I love News Nation. I've watched a lot of their coverage from various other topics that they've been. I scoured the YouTube channel with COWZ, and they do report on a lot of good things, but at the same time, in this day and age, and especially with this topic, it's hard to not get cynical about a lot of things. It gets hard to stay optimistic sometimes. It's kind of like Elon Musk. Like I like Elon Musk, and he says a lot of good things, but at the same time, I don't necessarily know if I 100% trust him, and that's how I am with News Nation. And considering their credentials and what we've seen from them so far, I feel like we can trust these guys. I feel like I can trust George Knapp. The only thing that worries me is we obviously have different governmental, SAP, special access factions, essentially, that are fighting with probably other factions, like Greer and some of these people he's come out with have said, over truth and this stuff getting out. So I'm wondering how many of these seeds in media and how much of this information is something that we can use to discern truth and how much of it is manipulation. So I think anyone that sees any information now, don't believe everything as is up front. If you want to know the truth, investigate it yourself, because it's a huge issue right now nowadays with a lot of us, and I'm guilty of this in a lot of ways too, where we become news feed addicts. Essentially, the only thing we believe is the words and the headlines that we see from a quick video or a 20-second TikTok and things like that. So if you see something like this and it intrigues your interest, go check it out, because we need more people out here discovering this kind of stuff and using the critical thinking skills. And I'm hoping this situation, even though I don't think it's a coincidence, is going to wake a lot of people up, because in my personal life, I'm not going to lie, I know 20 to 30 people right now that I work with and that I know as friends that are really starting to ask questions about these two topics that have come up in the last month and a half. It's really made a change in a lot of people's brains. And it feels like something is going to change here pretty soon, not just with the alien subject or with the extraterrestrial subject, but just in general on an informational aspect. I think there's going to be a next interesting couple of years coming up. I think by the end of 2024, this society that we live in is going to look a lot different than it did right now today. So we'll see.
Yeah, and this brings up so many things. We have non-human intelligence, possible close encounter. We have a former high-ranking U.S. intelligence official that's claimed the U.S. government has retrieved some of these UAPs of non-human origin and reverse engineer them. And I think there's a big question among people about how we should interpret this extraordinary, coincidence of developments, especially in such close proximity. Why did it take so long for this story about Angel and his family to come out to the public? And is it in some way, shape, or form, possibly a distraction from the whistleblowers. This is something that people have asked me. I don't have an answer to that. However,
nobody does.
You're right. And everybody wants to know, is it ours or is it theirs? Because I don't believe the family, even though there have been some inconsistencies, specifically with the Ring doorbell cam, which Angel claimed was his neighbor across the street, but turned out to be entirely further away. Little things. There have been some inconsistencies with the stories, and you've pointed out a few of those off air to me as well. But at the same time, these corporations, without naming them, these government contractors have purportedly the ability to make an event like this take place and very well, steer the direction of the news. They could land in anyone's backyard, right? And they could kind of they could make this happen anytime they want if this purported technology is actually in their, at their disposal, in their possession. What are your thoughts? Are we maybe on the cusp of confirmation by a government, that non-human intelligence is present on the planet?
I think we are, if Grush and his complaints that he filed are, number one, going to be addressed properly by Congress, and number two, not shut down by these internal factions that we can't see. And I think that's the main issue here. So I think this could go one of two ways. This is a linchpin, a historical moment. There can be, in the sense that if these complaints go through, Congress opens up these investigations, and we're able to get a foot in the door. With all the people that are pushing this right now, I hope it happens. But if we can get a foot in the door as far as being able to actually open these programs up from this, I think we're okay. But the only issue I'm having, and I'm worried about a little bit, is that Grush is going to get shut down internally. I don't think they can assassinate his character at this point. It doesn't seem like there's been anything in his past that's going to be able to be misconstrued to the point where he wouldn't be credible anymore. But at the same time, it does seem like these internal secret factions inside the government are extremely powerful. I mean, if we got to address the question. So if these groups have technology that is hundreds, thousands, tens of thousands of years ahead of ours that essentially looks like magic, we're not just talking about, anti-gravitational aircraft. We're talking about like faster than light communication. Apparently, from that press conference that Greer had, we're talking about a lot of different technologies besides just, the being able to lift things with anti-gravity tech. So essentially, there is a lot of power in that, and there's a lot of things that can be done to control the situation on a world scale with these kind of technologies, and in the dark without us knowing in this whole situation. I mean, if these governments, I do believe, I'm going to say personally, one of the things I do believe is that what Greer and his associates are saying about this internal struggle going on, I 100% believe that. And it just worries me, because I know there's a lot of good guys out there. I know there's a lot of people that want truth, but what we are dealing with right now, if this is real, which I think it is a very, very, very powerful enemy. This is an enemy that not only is multi-generational at this point, because it's been going on for longer than 70 years from what I have researched, but it's also been able to keep these things a secret for so long and access and use these technologies for that same amount of time, which, the amount of possibilities and questions that opens up it's insane. It's never ending. And you can think of, the end of World War II, New Schwabenland, you have Project High Jump with the stories of Admiral Byrd. A lot of that can't really be corroborated. A lot of these stories end out just being hearsay, but a lot of questions have to be opened up, that if the Roswell thing is real, and if we really got our first UFO in 1933 in Italy, and we've had them for that long, operable, I know this sounds crazy to say outright, but I've been talking about this with some of my friends. Like, Hitler may have not even died on this planet. It sounds insane, but with all the questions this opens up, that means World War II could have played out the exact way it did because of UFO technology, and that probably goes with a lot of our history since that period. So these groups are probably so entrenched that it's going to take literally everyone and probably the entirety of the public to be able to get this to open up. And that's kind of, in long terms, that's my point, as I'm worried right now that Dave and the people behind him and the ufology community and people like you and me aren't going to be enough right now. That's my deepest fear about all this, is it's not going to be enough of a push to be able to get this as far as it needs to go. Because if this complaint doesn't go as far as it needs to go, and that crack isn't deep enough, it's just going to seal itself back up, and we're going to be locked out again, and then we're going to have to wait another 6 months, a year, 2 years, 10 years down the road till someone else is brave enough and enough of a patriot to come out and risk their entire life and career over the most important subject in human history. So I appreciate Dave Brush, and I appreciate anyone that listens to this. I appreciate these people. You should too. These people that are coming out and talking about this information, not people like me, but people like Dave and Stephen Greer and all these big guys. They are risking their lives. They're risking the lives of their families. They're risking their professions. They're risking their fortunes. They're risking literally everything for this. And it really hurts me to see a large majority of the public laughing at these guys, because I hate to say it, but if you put yourself in their shoes, why the hell would you risk your entire life for something so crazy for no reason? Mm-hmm. It makes absolutely no sense, man. So we need to really give these people a chance. And I think a lot of people are right now. I just hope we can keep going with it, because this could go really well, or it could go really bad. And I hope it turns into the first option, that we have an information avalanche here, and hopefully we can break into this ice wall they have built around disclosure.
Yeah,
and the
man.
only thing is, I don't think it's, even after this happens, if we're success, Dave, and this whole push is successful, I think it's still going to be a slow move after that, because there's obviously going to be fighting at every point. There's going to be stonewalling. Essentially, a large portion of the corporate and legacy media is against this topic. They're paid off. We've got a lot of politicians that are probably against this topic. There's a lot of people inside Washington that we don't know, we haven't talked to, that are just waiting for the chance to put this down and stomp on its neck and kill it as soon as they can. So we got a lot of good people out there, though, and I trust the people that are in the news right now, because if I'm being honest, who else do we have to trust? There's not many people right now in the public eye that have proven that they should be respected and trusted at this point. Yeah, essentially, we've got people in this country that are working towards keeping this a secret and doing really disgusting things with these secrets. So I'm hoping we can get to the bottom of it. Stephen Greer's interviews, and especially the press conference and the testimony that, I can't remember his name, but the Marine gave on there, I believe his last name, is it Herrera?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, talking about the operation that he witnessed in Indonesia with the UFO there. That was disgusting, man, thinking about these kind of technologies being used to harm other humans, enslave humans, traffic them, and contribute to, the drug scourge that plagues their society. Yeah, we need to get rid of this stuff. We really do. And these people are heroes. The people that are trying to get this info out are heroes. So I'm going to support them in every way I can. You do too. And I'm hoping our general public gets there at some point too.
I really appreciate you saying that, because I think that's where this is headed. And I like where this is going, because, the one thing that David Grush has going for him is that he apparently, all, like you said, all his credentials are legitimate. And unfortunately, it seems so often in this space, as in the case of Doug Papa, the first thing that they go after is somebody's background and credentials, when in reality that has nothing to do with the matter at hand. And what Grush describes about these supposed crash retrieval programs is very interesting in how it operates. He's got all the jargon. He has all of the oversight. Everybody that seems to have worked with him likes the guy. And that's where things become difficult, because, as you mentioned, all the legacy media is basically ripping a new one on the poor guy, even though they have no reason to. And that shows really badly to the American public. And it makes you wonder, in my opinion, it makes his claims more legitimate.
Yeah, I think it does, and I think it's offensive to some people the way, I mean, especially with the legacy media, especially the way they treat uh, just regular Americans and people who think we're stupid. And granted, a lot of us aren't paying attention to it now, but most humans are really smart. You know what I mean? And I think most people can see the untruth in a lot of what's going on right now, and the untruth in a lot of what's been going on, especially in the last decade. But I think most of us, I mean, I've felt this myself, so I'm sure that most people feel it. Most of us are so worried about, keeping it together on a daily basis, worried about our daily lives, all the things we got going on in this seemingly faster and faster society we live in, that, our attention spans have been programmed and conditioned to be good for a few minutes at most, on top of that. So I don't blame a lot of people for not talking about this and not being able to digest it, because it is a lot. But I think subconsciously a lot of us are seeing the untruth and a lot of what's going on, and we recognize it. But since there's not a lot we can do about it, we kind of just tend to shove it into the back of our brain and forget about it later. So I think what's happening right now with these situations is making a huge difference in that for a lot of people, because, we don't want to act on a subject until we're not comfortable with it anymore, until it's on our doorstep. Human brains are kind of rigged to do that. And so right now with these situations, I'm hoping that it's kind of one of those situations where it is on our doorstep now and it's in your face and you can't really turn around and put your head in the sand. We got to address this. And these are hard questions. It's not just lighthearted, hey, there's aliens in the sky. These things have been hidden from us for 70 years, and our history is probably completely different than what we've been told. And I'm hoping once people realize they have to question their entire history, we're going to start seeing some people go to prison, because we've been lied to. And I'm starting to not wonder, but I've believed this for a long time, that what's taught in our history books, especially our history over the last 100 years, is really nothing, didn't really ever play out like we've been told. And I think a large majority of that, as of the last century, has to do with the UFO topic. I know it's true. I'll say that again. A lot of people still address it as crazy talk, but here in the next year, I think there's going to be a lot more people legitimately, seriously talking about this, and I think it's going to help us all grow as a civilization. And like in the Yugas, like if you study Hinduism, you got the Yugas, right? And we're supposed to be at the start of essentially a new golden age, and I think when you see stuff like that in 3,000-year-old plus text, it leads me to believe that maybe like we are at the start of this golden age, and this is like the catalyst for that, in a sense, or the start of the catalyst. Because I mean, what we're talking about right now, this subject, and hopefully this truth coming out, essentially gives our whole society a makeover, from like 0 to 100 in one day. So I'm positive. I'm really positive. I just want to be careful myself right now, and I want everyone else to be careful, and just don't believe everything you hear. If you want real truth, find it yourself.
Mm-hmm. And I think that's important. And, it's sad that the legacy media seems to be controlled at the highest levels, but it makes sense. Our economy is based on this. And the way I was discussing it with a former senior intelligence officer who confided in me some things, if the last people you're going to shoot are the contractors who keep you alive, right? So a lot of these corporations that are being named and as the bad guys in this whistleblower testimony, I find it highly unlikely that they are going to be, taken out at the knees, because these are the same forces that keep our government, they're the tip of the spear. They're the ones that make us a world power. And, this isn't the first time that government officials have suggested that we possess, for lack of a better word, retrieved materials. Late Senator Harry Reid, who was close friends with...
Rest in peace.
Yeah, R.I.P., right? Harry Reid, who was extremely left-wing, and Robert Bigelow, who was more conservative. When it came to certain things for decades, these guys saw eye to eye. And I think that's really important, because they both believed that they fought for greater disclosure. And Harry Reid came forward, and he had been told that Lockheed and some of these other contractors had reverse engineered materials. Now, I think this is starting to be more commonly believed by the mainstream. What are your thoughts on the public announcement that the U.S. has 12 or more alien spacecraft?
I would say at this point, if you put all the other evidence over the last, few decades together between, military whistleblowers, civilians, just all accounts, it seems like it's true. It seems like it's real. I'd imagine. I've seen two of them myself, or what I think are two of the ones that we have myself. They definitely weren't driven by aliens, the ones I saw. So I know we at least got two. So if someone's saying we have 9, who knows? You know what I mean? David Grush was saying we shot down something like 122 of these things on record. I can't remember if that was Greer. There's been so much information lately, man, going on. It's hard to keep it all inside my head. But if we really shot down 122 of these things, with scalar weapons, I'd imagine we got a lot more than that, which might cover some of the instances of UFOs all over the world. Hundreds of people are filming these things on a daily basis, so I'd imagine we probably have a lot more than, even that's on record. I'd imagine if there's 122 on record, from what Greer's saying, there's probably triple, quadruple that we just haven't heard of. I'm worried about this destabilization factor, though. Like you said, we can't just take a lot of these people out of the news. Our country right now is, as we know, our economy is formed largely around war culture, weapon making, things like that. So you have these companies, I'll name them because I don't like these companies, Lockheed Martin, Northrop Grumman, Raytheon, SAIC, all these companies, man, whether or not it's not the entirety of their, employment hiding these things, but it is the people at the top in some of these projects. These people need to be found out and they need to be put on trial. And I don't want to start getting flagrant with my speech, but I'm to the point where I'm really angry about this too. And I saw this in David Grush's face in the interview when he gave the interview about him saying that there were a lot of really un-American things that were being done to keep this a secret. And that's what makes me angry, is that there's sociopaths in some of these companies and in places in government that are essentially pulling the wool over our eyes in the name of greed and power. And understandably, we can't just take them all out. But once we figure out who these people are, we got to move away from this culture as soon as we can, because destabilization is a huge thing here. A lot of people, when they think about aliens coming out, they automatically think, what will the religious do? There's going to be a lot of suicides. And that will somewhat play into it. I think most people will be able to fit this topic once it comes out into their psyche in a way that makes sense, as long as we're given the truthful information. If it turns out this doesn't play out well and the public is hit with this blue beam-esque fake alien invasion, which they definitely have the technology for, to pretty easily do, if we get hit with this kind of stuff and it comes out in the wrong way, it could be really, really bad. But I think if it comes out in a good way and a truthful, it turns out that, we do exist peacefully with these things, that we can go in a good direction. But destabilization is going to happen no matter what. We're talking about our entire economy being fractured in half and essentially a day. And a lot of these people, they're in these positions of power. Our economy is built around them. Our culture is built around them in a lot of ways. So these are essentially pillars of our economy and our government. And it's something that we need to, keep on our heads as we navigate the situation. And I think the people in Washington and the people that are addressing the subject right now have solid heads on. I'm hoping we don't get to the point where enough of this information comes out and we start seeing riots in the streets. But considering how drastic this is and how much it changes our history, how much it changes our daily lives, I can see a large amount of people being extremely angry about this, because I'm extremely angry. I know there's things in my life on a daily basis that I suffer that probably wouldn't have to be done, if we had access to these technologies they're talking about. So that's just me personally, and I know there's probably millions of lives that could have been saved or enhanced, by these things being public, which is kind of what I'm irritated about. The people that are hiding these secrets are okay with that.
Huge.
In the name of whatever they're fighting for. So.
Big time. And, it's very, very interesting how coincidence and synchronicity has been working, at least in my personal experience regarding this case. And I've been very blessed due to previous things that I've done, like running a bed and breakfast in the Uinta Basin of Utah, where special operations and intelligence subject matter experts would stay, and somehow I've kept those relationships alive over the years. Because I have there's no way to explain some of the connections I've gotten. And it makes me realize that, the individuals presented with credible or verifiable evidence oftentimes attack those who come forward with it. Like we discussed, I think Doug Papa's doing a great job. He's been attacked. They tried to knock the knees out from under him. I think that Grush is doing a great job. They've done the same thing. Even Sean Kirkpatrick, who Kirkpatrick is with Arrow, AARO. And, in Kirkpatrick's testimony to Congress, he said that he is operating under a Title 10 authority, but most intelligence agencies operate under a higher Title 50 authority. So it seems that the intelligence community with Title 50 feels free to stonewall Arrow with the Title 10 because they view Title 10 as inferior to 50. So it was almost set up to fail from the go.
First place, yeah.
What are your thoughts on that?
No, I agree. When I watched my first thought was off the top is that he's either hiding something or he doesn't have access to the information that we know, most people know about the research. The reason I thought that is because, it was just so damn boring. There wasn't much to the hearings, and with Kirkpatrick, I started looking into it after the hearings concluded, and I did hear about the Title 50 and Title 10 thing, and it does seem like that's going on. So it seems like Kirkpatrick and his crew over there at ARO, they don't have access to the information they needed in the first place. So essentially, their entire effort at this point, from what it looks like, is useless. They are essentially stuck in a bubble inside of a bigger bubble that they can't get out of, information-wise. So, if these secret documents are not able to be pursed by the staff there's really no sense in having the program. And that's a big thing that the public misses, because a lot of people don't hear about this kind of information. It's not really forced out there the way some of these headlines are. So that piece of information specifically changes the game for ARO specifically, because it shows you essentially that, the program either was set up in the first place to be a distraction, which is what I think, or, it's basically was just a dummy. So either way, I don't think we're going to get much out of ARO. I think we're probably going to have to do another iteration of the program before, a couple of years down the road before anything crazy is accessible. But we'll see with Congress. I mean, if these, I guess there's like 17, 18 senators and congressmen right now that have essentially come out and spoken about Rush in affirmative tone. So hopefully that's enough to get this started. But they need more guts in those programs. They need higher clearances, because essentially, if you got a glass ceiling and all the good stuff above the glass ceiling, there's really no sense in doing any of this. It's all talk, essentially, and that's the thing with a lot of the UFO subjects, is the ambiguous nature of it, lack of evidence, just puts you in a talking circle. So that's essentially what ARO is going to do. They're going to, sit and look at these UFOs and be like, yeah, there's stuff flying in the sky, and it's not ours. There you go. And that's not going to help anybody. It's just going to be a circle of useless information. Because me personally, I've seen enough Tic Tac videos, I've seen enough orb videos, I've seen enough UFOs. Everyone knows they're up there. Everyone knows they're unexplained. Everyone knows they're not human. But we need the next, step in the story. And I think that's the linchpin right here, is we've got these forces behind the scenes right now just I think there's a lot of people, excuse my language, I think there's a lot of people losing their shit behind the scenes right now. I can't imagine being one of these people in one of these programs and knowing that, the public's getting ready to come after you guys and start investigating. I bet there's a lot of real scared guys out there and a lot of rushing around going on, a lot of document dumping going on. So hopefully enough of it gets saved that, this crack in this ice wall I'm talking about can be forced open and we can get a deluge of truthful information.
Agreed,
that's
man.
That's what I want, and that's what you want, man. That's what we all want.
Agreed. The paper shredders are overheating right now.
Oh, overloaded right now. I guarantee you. I kind of want to go look at Office Max and Office Depot stock right now and see if they're climbing a little bit. Because, yeah, it's crazy, man. I think most people right now in the general public, and I get this from talking to people all over online, friends, people I work with, people in public, everyone, even if they don't consciously know or realize it, they're starving for truth. They're starving for people to look to that are respectable and admirable. They're starving for meaning. They're starving for a lot of things right now. And I think subjects like this hopefully will give people more hope. Because, if I'm being honest, with the news and the way things are going with our economy in the world and geopolitics right now, it's pretty bleak. It's really bleak. So, everyone feels that. I know everyone feels it. What doesn't matter what you believe politically. If you're a human, you feel that things aren't going that great. So, I'm hoping that we can come together as a civilization more from this, and kind of expose more of our humanity, because in the last few decades we've started to lose some of that. I know there's a lot of people I see on a daily basis just lost the spark of life in their eyes. And I think a lot of us just need something truthful and exciting like this to get us going. And so even if it takes the president coming out, the White House, and saying it himself, I think that will happen in the next 5 years at the latest. So.
You brought up some really good points here, Josh, and it's unfortunate that there seems to be a deep, long history of aerospace engineers, NASA, the DoD, and even the former UAP task force, of them formally being created by Congress as a smokescreen. And this is unfortunate because, as you mentioned with some of this footage, like the Tic Tac and the Go Fast and all of these, it's unfortunate because, as you know, I consider Jeremy Corbell and George Knapp friends, incredible sources at least. And, Jeremy came out quite some time ago. It was January 2023, of a still from a video of a UFO flying over the city of Mosul in Iraq. And everybody said this is just a still image. He's like, no, you guys, this is from a video. I promise.
I got the
video. yeah, I got the video. Nobody believed him. And then Arrow released it in April 2023, complete with video. And it just goes to show that people are not willing to take you at your word, even when you come out with these things, such as Jeremy, the documentary filmmaker, way ahead of time. And the complaint is always, oh, is it credible? Is it, you're just doing this to promote yourself? It's really it just seems like the status quo. If you don't come out with absolutely everything in closure and complete disclosure, they automatically put you in this arena with a bunch of quacks. And I don't think this happens. This seems to be like on a cyclical basis with people coming out with shared information, everybody trying to combat and debunk them and hush them up. And then another surge. It's almost like waves of this is coming in, and disclosure is literally happening one drop at a time. But it does appear that there's indisputable realization, at least by the public, that there's something to it, right? Where there's smoke, there's fire.
Yeah.
I've heard some people, I believe Herrera was one of them, that said, if we don't come out with all of this now, that it will not happen, and that we may.
I agree.
How long do you think it's going to take before everybody realizes or is compelled to validate some of these claims?
I don't know exactly. None of us know. I don't know exactly how much it's going to take. really it's just best guess at this point. I feel like the way the situation plays out is going to drastically be affected by how large the effort is and how successful the information tactics are, I guess, because we do have a few factions here, and I think the main thing is going to be fighting algorithms here, because these factions, these people have essentially, well, for lack of a better word, spies everywhere. So, you got people in Google, YouTube, all these different search engines are probably being controlled with these algorithms that are obscuring the real information or the information that needs to be seen from the public. So the thing with people getting credible information on the news feed and in front of them is going to be a big part of the story. However, I think psychologically a lot of people right now, even though they have proof in front of them, it's not something that they are willing to open up. And I don't think it's because of the alien question, I think it's because of all the other questions that come after that. And I have friends personally that I've shown indisputable evidence dozens of times of these things to, government whistleblower evidence, and they still always find a reason or an excuse as to why it doesn't make any sense. People's brains, I think, are rigged right now and conditioned to find anything they can to make this unbelievable. But when subconsciously, I think they know it's true. I think if anybody meditates and goes inside themselves, we'll realize that, we're all one connected consciousness. We're not the only ones out there. There have most likely been things here for a long time, and this most likely is not our planet. So I think that is built into our DNA in some way or another, if that makes any sense. And so I think it's a knowing that we all have, but right now we are conditioned, most of us conditioned in a lot of ways to essentially fight that knowing, consciously or subconsciously. So I think a large portion of the victory here and getting this linchpin and avalanche started is breaking that mechanism inside of the American and worldwide public, because I think psychologically that one thing is what's keeping, that conditioning is what's keeping a lot of people from switching the light on. And people who've had experiences, weird experiences like you and me and lots of others, those experiences a lot of the time serve to turn off or unhinge that gate that has been conditioned or programmed into our psychology. And it did a huge thing for me. I would have never gotten into the subject if it wouldn't have been for the things I've seen. And so there is a consciousness expanding aspect to that. And I think a lot of us are stuck essentially in this consciousness prison, even though, inside our DNA we know what the truth is. So we just need more people yelling the truth out there in the right places. And I think it'll get the paradigm to shift a little more.
Super well said. And you brought up something really big, which is consciousness. And, sources have said that, well, basically, we have these craft. However, we are not able to fly them. And, it's like sending a cell phone back to the caveman. What are your thoughts on this? Do you believe that we have reverse engineered craft and are flying them, or do you think we're still just kind of looking at them and figuring out how they work?
So I don't know all the information, but from what I've gathered, there's different ways or different types of engines essentially that you can use to get the same effect out of these craft, right? You got this anti-gravitational effect. I think if you have the right materials that are reverse engineered and you have the science to be able to essentially get this thing working or prove, this aspect of the craft, this anti-grav aspect, you would still have to have a way to control it, And so this consciousness bridge that they're talking about inside of some of these craft might serve to be an issue because we're conscious beings, obviously, but some of these craft I've read, from investigating different accounts that they're controlled by touch panels, other craft. Like apparently what Corso said, from Roswell is they got a headband from one of those craft. Different headbands essentially that were put on the pilot's heads in order to, I guess, mind bridge with these craft in order to drive them. So I don't know maybe if we've reverse engineered our own technologies or craft from the extraterrestrial ones, if we've been able to find a mechanism to control them. I think we have. I think they'd be able to do that in some way or another. But there's the other aspect where if some of these are ET craft, that maybe we don't know how to drive them. I've heard stories, accounts of people driving these things and getting lobotomized trying to drive them because, well, our brains just aren't built for these things, or they're not built for our brains or our consciousness. And that's obviously hearsay, but it leads to a good point. It's like, do we even know how to drive these things? And from what I've seen, from the hundreds, thousands, and thousands of UFO videos I've seen, there's like a good percentage of these videos where it looks like the thing is just hanging in the air and doesn't really know what's going on. I want to say that's a pattern, especially with the TR3B Black Triangle videos. There was that one from 29 Palms last month. That one was just hanging in the air, and that video specifically seemed like it was an announcement or a display of the technology, which I really don't understand. I haven't been able to figure that out yet, but a lot of the time these things, I've seen videos of TR3Bs just hanging in the air, like the person just lost control of the steering wheel or something, So I don't know, I think there's probably different types that we have been able to figure out how to control, and I bet there's a lot that we haven't too. As many races as have been mentioned in a lot of these accounts, up to like 83, 200, I've heard a lot of numbers floated around by different people, but as many races as we have essentially that have been in contact with this planet. I mean, there could be tons of different types of technologies. We could have nuts and bolts technology. We could have, purely elemental conscious technology. There could be so many things. And a lot of these races, we do know and we've heard about, a lot of these two-legged ones or these humanoid ones, but there could be lots of stuff out there we just really can't even understand. There might be beings out there, technologies that we will never be able to comprehend because we don't know at this point. None of us know. We know about the Greys, which from the press conference, I don't know if everyone's listening to this, but from the press conference with Greer for a while, they've been saying that, what do they call them? Programmed life forms. They're saying a lot of the gray aliens that are seen are actually just made by the military with some of this technology that they've reverse engineered from these crashes. So there's that too. They got the little gray aliens that are supposedly interdimensional, but they're also supposedly cyborgs, some of them, and then also some of them might be really aliens. I mean, we just don't know, So until more information comes out, I'm trying not to stick to my beliefs or not have beliefs too much, I guess, because things change on a daily basis. For the most part, a dozen times a day. But these craft, I do know I want to drive one. It would make my job a lot easier if I could have some anti-grav technology. I would definitely have to work a lot less, so that would be cool.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I don't know. I think we'll see more of this, and I hope they announce these technologies within the next couple of years. But I think we have to get through this first little bout of getting it into public sight and kind of digested, and then push more, and then maybe we'll have them, show us some of this technology. But if you read Phil Corso's book, Day After Roswell, he talks about the fact that, some of our technologies that we are using worldwide on a daily basis right now are reverse engineered from alien craft. And there have been debunkers come out over the last, 20 years and essentially debunked, of course, those claims in that book about these different technologies. And I thought that was the truth. But, if you really think about it, if the rest of this stuff is real, maybe he wasn't lying. Maybe some of these technologies just happened to have inventors put into history. To write that in a history book, this guy invented fiber optics. We don't really know where it came from. It could be another story behind it. And since the majority of our history over the last 100 years has been hidden from us, obscured and twisted, I'd imagine that just about everything else that you've heard that just seemed like a crazy story probably should be looked into. I'm really interested in World War II and the Nazis because everyone, normal people think Hitler died in the bunker. Conspiracy theorists think he died in Argentina or maybe Antarctica, but this brings up the Antarctica questions too. So there's so many things right now. It just keeps going. So if this is real, essentially the entirety of our reality is a fairy tale in reality. So that's exciting to me, man. And I hope that's exciting to other people too, because it makes life a lot cooler than it is presented to us that we're supposed to believe. Gives us a lot more power as people, gives us a lot more hope, gives us a lot more strength as a culture and the society together as a planet. And so, there's like nothing bad that comes from this besides that we get rid of a bunch of really shitty people that have been in power for a long time, which I don't have a problem with. So.
Man, so true. And I know that you we're going a little bit over, and that you are on site, just got done with some work, so I don't want to keep you too long. But as we wrap up, I too would love to fly the craft. I hear you. I loved Grant Cameron's book, UFO Sky Pilots. And I'm actually personally friends with somebody that was in that book that claims to have flown these craft. So there is that going on. He's actually in Utah. He's based out of Utah. His name is Ron Johnson. He lives down in Price. Yeah, we'll have to talk about that. What's interesting is that, yeah, the controls, like you said, at 29 Palms in that video, it seems as if that craft is hanging in midair. And even though the 29 Palms video is 2 years old, it seemed very similar to Scott Tappy's footage here in Las Vegas just about a month ago. What I've heard, and this is coming from pretty high ups, GS15 and above. And this is coming second and third person into my realm of information. But what I've heard is, that, yeah, this consciousness aspect of flying the craft, as Ron Johnson has claimed, is more difficult. And that our guys, our top men, feel a lot more comfortable flying the craft with, believe it or not, game controllers like you find with an Xbox.
That's what I've heard.
Yeah, like an Xbox or a PlayStation. And
it makes total sense too.
yeah, and they prefer them wireless, and sometimes the batteries wear out or whatever, or need to be changed, and it's those moments when the thing is just hanging in midair, again, like I said.
That's probably so true.
Sometimes the truth is stranger than fiction sometimes, man. It makes you really wonder. Okay, so lastly, as we wrap up, the sources have said that they suspect that the Chinese and Russians have also retrieved reverse engineered materials and craft, and that we are fighting a very real Cold War behind the scenes. What are your thoughts about that?
I would tend to believe that. I mean, if you look at, let's just say our history, in modern history, humans have a tendency to behave this way, especially in geopolitical situations where you have, there's a lot of these politicians, a lot of them are sociopaths, in my opinion. And so you have the cover-up going on here. You see dozens, hundreds of situations where our government and intelligence agencies have covered up even the most mundane things. So, I mean, to tell you the truth, we're all humans. There's no reason why that wouldn't be happening in other countries. I'm sure Russia and China have access to these things too. I think what we're not seeing, though, is maybe not a Cold War, but a Mexican standoff, I think is what they call it, where essentially that no one's able to pull the trigger because it might risk essentially destroying our entire planet. Some of these weapons that have been talked about in the press conference a few days ago and over the last few years, up to 20 years ago, that have been talked about from people coming out. Some of these weapons, scalar weapons, we have energy weapons, plasma weapons, all these different types of technology that have a much larger effective range and depth of effect than a nuclear weapon would. So, I mean, you might have a situation where there's multiple countries like Russia, China, and America that all have these essentially planet-destroying technologies, and maybe no one's willing to use them because it risks everybody else. I'm not really sure. It's hard to tell how accurate these things are, what types of weapons they are, how much they're used, but the man that was talking in the press conference today was talking about the fact that, they're able to cause earthquakes with some of these machines, which brings into question quite a few different events over the course of the last 20 years. Things like the earthquake in Haiti come up in my mind when they talk about these kinds of weapons. And I 100% on my life believe that those guys are telling the truth and these things are real. We need to open up Antarctica because if these weapons are being used to divert and twist public discourse and history, then we need to stop that and address it. Because these scalar weapons, man, the things they're talking about as far as these wave weapons go, these 0-point energy weapons go, they're dangerous. And I think they're orders of magnitude more dangerous than the weapons that we currently have access to, at least as far as the public knows. So it's a scary situation. That's where the scary part of it comes into, because we don't know how many times these weapons have been used. If these weapons really have to call in to question 9/11 too. 9/11 didn't make a lot of sense. You have Beauty's book. He wrote a book about, the Twin Towers, where there were accounts of, cars being melted to the street up to like a quarter mile away from. I'm probably kind of wrong about that. It's been a long time since we read the book, but essentially, there was evidence on 9/11 of direct energy weapons being used or something along those lines, and a lot of other situations. So that's a scary aspect, man. So it calls into a lot of things into question, and I think we're gonna eventually, maybe not very soon, but in the near future, be alerted about a large amount of false flags that have probably occurred because of these weapons. So.
Man, I think you make some good points as always, Josh. I absolutely love our conversations. I appreciate you going over time with us. I know you're just getting off a site and some things you're into there, and I think you made great points. I love the work you're doing. If people haven't heard our previous podcast about your possible finding into deep underground, at least underground facilities, possible openings that are in and around Utah there, definitely check out that podcast with Josh. He always has a bunch of great points. We'll have to come back and get some more info about this, because it keeps moving, man. And it's a moving target, and you are doing a really good job of keeping a pulse on it. So thanks so much for taking time out of your busy day, Josh.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I'm doing more work up here in the mountains. I can tell you about that later on. Anybody that knows the information or wants to talk about any of this stuff, you can hit me up on Twitter. My username's GrayWave33. I just got Twitter. I got the UFO Twitter. So you guys, if anyone listens to this, add me on there. But yeah, I appreciate it, man. Good luck to you. Stay safe, and find your own truth, guys.
There it is, ladies and gentlemen. Josh going into it with us, the one, the only Elevated Josh from Utah, and having a whole lot of insight into the situation with the whistleblowers and, of course, the Vegas alien encounter. This will most likely only get better, and the plot seems to thicken. I don't think the case is over yet. Definitely stay tuned for future episodes, and until next time, keep your eyes to the skies, feet on the ground, but don't forget to take a look around.
Come blast off in my time machine. Third eye feeling like an Evazine. Blast off, blast off, blast off, blast off. Come blast off in my time machine. Third eye feeling like an Evazine. Blast off, blast off, blast off, blast off.